In this lecture, I am going to start a new chapter called Laplace transform. So let us start. In the last few lectures, we have discussed the Fourier transform technique for the analysis of linear networks and systems. So you recall that the Fourier transform technique is considered very appropriate in dealing with the networks and systems which are characterized by their frequency response function denoted by h of j omega. Okay, because the frequency response function is deduced experimentally. Okay, using convenient techniques, or the specifications is given in terms of frequency response. Therefore, the frequency response function comes naturally a suitable choice for such systems or networks. For example, a filter networks. However, for the analysis of general linear networks, especially for transient behavior or transient performance, then the Laplace transform offers a number of definite advantages, and for this particular application it is unrivaled. Therefore, we would like to spend some time now onwards in discussing the Laplace transformation techniques for the analysis of linear networks and systems. And let us then later on we will find out the Laplace transform of various signals. Okay, so for the first few lectures we would like to discuss what is meant by Laplace transform and find the Laplace transform of several important time functions. Okay, what is the Laplace transform of let's say del of t, then u of t, and then r of t, like that, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then discuss the properties of the Laplace transforms. Then we will take up the question of its applications to various networks and systems, various systems. In the Laplace transformation, the type of Laplace transformation that we talk about is what is called unilateral Laplace transform. In Laplace transform, we have two types: bilateral Laplace transform and then unilateral Laplace transform. Now let us start with the unilateral Laplace transformation, and then later on we will move on to bilateral Laplace transform. Okay, in this course majority of the time we will be concentrated only with the unilateral Laplace transform. I will tell you the reason why this unilateral Laplace transform is very important for us. Unilateral Laplace transform. Okay, so this is the type of Laplace transform that we are going to talk about. Okay, what we meant by that is we assume that the signal x of t is 0 for t less than 0. Okay, that's what we mean by unilateral signal. So our discussion will be limited to okay, so our discussion will be limited to f of t, which is equal to 0 for t less than 0. That means causal time function. Okay, so indeed we if indeed we have an x of t, I'm sorry, let me consider the notation x of t. Okay, in case if x of t fails to be 0 for t less than 0, we simply disregard the values of the function for negative values of time. So you have the function x of t. Sometimes the function is not equal to 0. Your x of t is not equal to 0 for t less than 0 sometimes. In this case, what we do is we will disregard this guy. Okay, don't consider. You consider only the portion from t equals 0 onwards. Okay, so even if the function exists, we will disregard, so that our function originally starts, we assume that the function starts from t equals 0 onwards. So our discussion will be confined to such functions, and this is not a great disadvantage. Okay, you may think, why, if you disregard the signal for t less than 0, then there is some kind of no disadvantage in the analysis. So there will not be any great disadvantage, because in transient analysis of networks and systems, some switching takes place at a particular point of time. So you have a source and then switch here, then switching happens at t equals 0. What we mean by t equals 0? Let us say now time is exactly 6 o'clock 20 minutes p.m. Now when at 6:20 p.m. if I close the switch, then that 6:20 p.m. is considered as t equals 0, and from then onwards time is calculated. And somebody will comes and closes the switch at 6:21 p.m. somebody else, then you say that is t equals 0 for that circuit. So therefore when I say t equals 0 means what? At what point of time you are closing the switch, that is considered as t equals 0. And from then onwards you start to evaluate like this. You have a network like this, and then you start to find out what is the transient response and steady state response of the networks and systems. So what it means is that we are least bothered about what happens up to t equals 0. Until the switching action happens, then we are not worried about that. When the switching action happens, then we will consider what is going to happen, and we will calculate. Okay, so switching takes place at a particular point of time, and that point of time is called t equals 0. Okay, so and we can always take the switching to take place at t equals 0, and the past history of the circuit for example 6 o'clock 19 minutes or 6 o'clock 18 minutes or 6 o'clock, these are all my past history. Okay, so I don't worry about the past history of the system. Okay, so for example an electrical network in the reactive elements, so the energy storage in the reactive element at t equals 0 plus knowledge of the excitation function from t equals 0 onwards. Even if there is some energy before t less than 6 o'clock 20 minutes, then that I will consider as a separate source, and that will be added with this source for positive value of t. So these two factors determine the response of the network uniquely for t greater than 0. If you know the excitation function, then if you know the excitation function only for t greater than or equals 0, and process that will entail any that will not entail any loss of generality, because whatever is needed about the past history of the network is summarized by the conditions in the reactive elements. If you have C, then the initial stored voltage, let us say Vc of 0 minus. What is the initial charge stored in the capacitor? That will be given by this Vc of 0 minus. If you have an inductor, then IL of 0 minus, current which flows through the inductor. And in addition to that, what is your Vs or Is? This all are added together, and you start to count, or you start to evaluate the network performance or circuit performance or system performance from t greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so this does not leads to any loss of generality as far as the transient performance is concerned. So even though you consider x of t for t greater than or equal to 0, it does not lose any information. Okay. So all informations are captured in terms of the initial charge stored in the capacitor and the initial current flowing through the inductor. Okay. However, the Fourier transforms of a certain time function does not exist, that I already mentioned in the previous lecture. In case if you take e to the minus 2t times u of t, then if you take Fourier transform, then it has 2 plus j omega. But if you take e to the 2t times u of t, then the Fourier transform will not exist, because this function does not converge. Okay, therefore, the Fourier transform do not exist for certain time functions. Okay, so therefore, this does not exist because of the defined integral for the Fourier transform is like 0 to infinity, then e to the minus j omega t times e to the 2t times u of t and dt. When you integrate from 0 to infinity, that integral does not converge. So in such a case, you will not get a finite value. But on the other hand, the Laplace transformation, what it does is enlarges the type of functions for which we can find out the transforms. That means certain functions for which the Fourier transform do not exist, even for those functions also you can find out the Laplace transform. Okay, how do we do that? To do that, let us consider the Fourier transform of not x of t. Okay, don't take Fourier transform of x of t, but what you do is you take x of t multiplied by some e to the minus sigma t, okay, e to the power minus sigma t, and then take the Fourier transform of this product. So given x of t, we don't find a Fourier transform that as such. Okay, because if you take e to the 2t u of t, you cannot find the Fourier transform. Now what you do, take this e to the 2t and u of t, multiply by e to the minus sigma t, and then you take Fourier transform of this. That is what we are trying to say now. Okay, and where the sigma is chosen to ensure the existence of the Fourier transform of this e to the 2t u of t. Okay, choose sigma such that the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times e to the 2t and u of t exist. So that is how you choose this sigma value. Okay, so the important point is sigma is chosen to ensure that the existence of Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times x of t. So even if x of t does not have Fourier transform, okay, x of t does not or may not have Fourier transform, but e to the minus sigma t times x of t definitely has Fourier transform. Okay, so it is possible to have a Fourier transform for this product when you multiply by e to the minus sigma t, e to the minus sigma t times x of t. Okay, so that is what, for example, what I said, I took e to the 2t, then you multiply this guy e to the 2t with e to the minus 3t, then u of t, then what happens? It will converge now, because this guy is decaying very fast than the growing of this e to the 2t. Okay, so then if you multiply these two guys, then it becomes e to the minus t, then Fourier transform exists. So the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times x of t by definition is equal to let me say my function is u of t, unilateral function, then 0 to infinity e to the minus sigma t x of t u of t, then e to the minus j omega t dt, and this is called a unilateral Laplace transform. As I mentioned, we are assuming that this x of t in our Laplace transform technique to be those functions for which the value is 0 for t less than 0. Okay, that means we are assuming a causal signal. Okay, so therefore this product will be 0 for t less than 0 for negative values of time. So that's why we choose the integration from 0 to infinity instead of minus infinity to plus infinity. See, as per the Fourier transform formula, it is going to be minus infinity to plus infinity x of t e to the minus j omega t times dt. But here we did not put we did not put minus infinity here. Okay, we put 0. Why? Because we assumed these two guys exist only for t greater than 0 and it is 0 for t less than 0. That's why the limit is from 0 to infinity. Okay, if the Fourier transform of x of t times u of t is let us say x of t times u of t, if you take the Fourier transform, then you will end up with the x of j omega. Now instead of let me write down here. Now instead of e to the j omega t, I have one more exponent, right? See, if in the definition you have only e to the minus j omega t, so you wrote this as x of j omega. But here I have not only have this omega, but also this sigma. Therefore this transform is a function of not only omega, but it also a function of sigma. Therefore sigma plus j omega. In the Fourier transform, we simply put a j omega here, because in the exponent you have j omega, in the exponent you have omega, and here you have j omega. In addition to that, you have sigma also. Therefore this transform is denoted by x of sigma plus j omega, and this sigma plus j omega is called by a special symbol s. So therefore this is x of s, capital X of small s. Therefore by definition your x of s is equal to x of sigma plus j omega is equal to integral of 0 to infinity, not from minus infinity to plus infinity, e to the minus sigma t x of t, then e to the minus j omega t and dt. Now what is s? S is defined as sigma plus j omega, and this is complex frequency. This we already discussed. And because why is it called a complex variable or complex frequency? Its dimension is in terms of frequency. Therefore this x of s, now which is the, what is x of s? X of s is the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t multiplied by x of t and u of t, of course u of t. But instead of bringing a function omega, we are treating this f of sigma plus j omega as s. Now the inverse Fourier transform, if you want to find out, then what will you do? The inverse, by definition, the inverse Fourier transform is 1 over 2 pi integral of x of j omega e to the j omega t times d omega. Now instead of x of j omega, I have x of sigma plus j omega, right? Then e to the j omega t times d omega, and put 1 over 2 pi here. So this is my inverse Fourier transform. So use the inverse Fourier transform formula. Okay, this is my usual formula for inverse Fourier transform, but here you will get a x of t. You don't get x of t, okay, x of t multiplied by e to the minus sigma t. Okay, and this one is the inverse Fourier transformation of x of sigma plus j omega. This is inverse Fourier transformation of x of sigma plus j omega. And if you apply the inverse Fourier transform, you must recover back your original function. What is the original function? E to the minus sigma t times x of t. From this you can multiply both sides by e to the plus sigma t, plus then already have e to the minus sigma t. X of t is equal to e to the plus sigma t 1 over 2 pi integral of x of sigma plus j omega e to the j omega t and then d omega. Now this and that will get cancelled. So x of t is equal to this e to the sigma t is independent of d omega, because you are doing the integration with respect to what? Omega. Therefore I can bring it inside the integration. So 1 over 2 pi integral of minus infinity to plus infinity x of sigma plus j omega e to the sigma t times e to the j omega t times d omega. Okay, because sigma t is independent of omega, okay, which is the variable of integration. Omega is the variable of integration. I can push it inside the integral sign without disturbing any value. So the range of integration now is an omega from minus infinity to plus infinity. But now I would like to put this in terms of the new variable s. The sigma plus j omega is called x of s. So 1 divided by 2 pi, and the limit is minus infinity to plus infinity. By the way, this is omega, okay, because you are doing the integration with respect to omega. X of s, you combine these two guys, e to the sigma plus j omega times t and d omega. What is the relation between omega and s? We know that s is equal to sigma plus j omega. What is sigma? Sigma is some constant. So ds is equal to 0 plus j times d omega, right? Therefore d omega is replaced by ds by j. Now in this limits, what is the lower limit? When omega tends to minus infinity, then what will happen? Because s is equal to sigma plus j omega. When omega goes to minus infinity, then s becomes sigma minus j infinity. This is my lower limit. Similarly, what is the upper limit? When s equals sigma, when omega goes to plus infinity, then s goes to sigma plus j infinity. Okay, so these are the two limits. Now you can replace 1 over 2 pi and x of s e to the st, then d omega becomes ds by j, and now the limit is s is equal to sigma minus j infinity plus sigma plus j infinity. So these are my limits now, new limits. Okay, now this j you can bring it outside of the integration. 1 over 2 pi j integral of sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity, then x of s e to the st ds. This is your x of t. Okay. So now the inverse Fourier transform, if you want to find out of x of sigma plus j omega, how do I find this? By inverse Fourier transform of x of sigma plus j omega. So the inverse Fourier transform of this must give us back to f of t. Where is it? Yeah, this one. This one you should give it back, e to the minus sigma t times x of t. Okay, and then you multiply sigma t on both sides, and finally you will end up the inverse transformation, that is x of t is equal to 1 by 2 j sigma minus, the limit is sigma minus j infinity to plus j infinity. Okay, so we are talking of finding out the Fourier transform of x of t, right? But such functions of type like if x of t is equal to e to the power of 2t times u of t, then this type of function do not lend themselves to Fourier transformation. So what we can do is we can try to decrease its growth. Okay, so this function Fourier transform does not exist. Why? Because it is exponentially increasing like this. So what you do, you control its growth. How do you control its growth? You multiply by multiplying a function like e to the minus sigma t times e to the 2t and u of t. Therefore its growth is controlled now. Okay, now choose the sigma suitably. Okay, you cannot choose any arbitrary value for sigma. Okay, you should choose suitably. That we will discuss a little later, how we can choose that sigma value, on what basis, all those things. Therefore this entire function e to the minus sigma t times e to the 2t u of t decreases with the increasing value of t's, so that the Fourier integral converges. Okay, so we are associating with x of t a convergence factor. So this e to the sigma t minus sigma t is called a convergence factor. Okay, and this value of sigma is something which depends upon a particular signal x of t. So what signal you have, based on this you can choose this sigma, okay, which we should have. Okay, we will see about that a little later. So now after having borrowed this e to the minus sigma t as a convergence factor, then we find the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times x of t. You find the Fourier transform of this. Okay, so that means you multiply u of t, because you are talking about unilateral Laplace transform. Okay, because we are going to talk about the functions which is 0 for t less than 0. That is for negative values of time, it is going to be 0. Therefore the Fourier transform integration, instead of starting from minus infinity to plus infinity, it starts from 0 to infinity. It starts from 0 itself, because the value of the integrand will be 0 for negative values of time. If you put x of t, and this integrand is 0 for negative values of negative t. So consequently the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times x of t times u of t will be x of sigma plus j omega. Okay, where instead of x of simply writing x of j omega, we write x of sigma plus j omega. Okay, now we have a new function, that is sigma plus j omega. Okay, now we would like to treat this as a new variable s. Therefore, this x of sigma plus j omega becomes x of s. So, instead of now always talking in terms of the transforms by using this e to the minus sigma t x of t, every time you have to multiply this guy, right? It is not that much convenient. Okay. So, instead of now always talking in terms of sigma t times x of t or the Fourier transform of e to the minus sigma t times x of t, always by this convergence factor, what we do is we must straight away talk in terms of a transformation of reference to the variable s. Somehow we will get rid of this e to the minus sigma t. Okay. So, we can straight away say that a given function x of t, okay, you have a transformation which is obtained by multiplying x of t by e to the minus st and integrating over 0 to infinity with respect to t. Okay, that will give you x of s. And once you have got x of s, we can get x of t by the following formula that we already derived: 1 by 2 pi j sigma minus j infinity sigma plus j infinity x of s e to the plus st and ds. And these two formulas or relations constitute the two central relationship as far as Laplace transformation is concerned. So, this is a Laplace transformation and this one is inverse Laplace transformation. Both are unilateral Laplace transform. There is something called bilateral. So, the same formula, but the thing is x of s is equal to minus infinity to plus infinity x of t times e to the minus st dt, then x of t is equal to same formula 1 over 2 pi j sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity x of s e to the st ds. These two are bilateral Laplace transform, these two are unilateral Laplace transform. So, the origin of Laplace transformation as an offshoot of the Fourier transformation is what we have discussed now. But let us see afterwards, straight away define the Laplace transformation relations and then study the various properties. So, the definition goes as follows: given a function x of t, we will indicate its Laplace transform by capital X and small s, and the reverse also valid. Okay. Sometimes people will write as x of t, arrow mark like this, and put a arrow mark like this, and x of s. Or you can write x of t, double headed arrow, capital X and small s. Okay, where this s is equal to sigma plus j omega. So, we indicate the function of time and its Laplace transform in this manner. So, x of s is obtained from given x of t by the defining integral, this one. Maybe I will write down here one more time. X of s is equal to 0 to infinity x of t e to the minus st times dt. Okay, and this is called unilateral Laplace transform integral. Laplace transform integral. Okay, and the inverse Laplace transform is x of t is equal to 1 over 2 pi j and the integral x of s times e to the st and ds, sigma minus j omega to sigma plus j omega. Now maybe I will spend a little more time about this limits sigma minus j infinity to plus sigma plus j infinity a little later, okay, or in a moment. I will explain in a moment about this limits of this integration. Okay, so this one is called inverse Laplace transform. So for this integral to exist, as I said, there must be a convergence factor. Okay, this integral, there should exist a convergence factor. Let me finish this first. And here I should have some convergence factor, otherwise the Laplace transform does not exist. That means the Fourier transform does not exist. So depending upon the type of function that we are considering, x of t, there is a certain minimum value of the real part of s. The real part is here. So some minimum amount I should have. Minimum amount of the real part of s I should have. Okay. So the real part of s here for this integral to exist must be larger than a certain value sigma c. Okay. So this real part of sigma real part of s must be greater than certain value sigma c. That sigma c depends on given signal x of t. Given x of t. Okay, and the sigma c is called let me write down here, abscissa of convergence. So when you are deriving the Laplace transformations of various functions, we will just briefly have a look at the abscissa of convergence that is required, otherwise the Laplace transform is not valid. So you have to specify what is the value of sigma c. If you find a Laplace transform without sigma c, then this Laplace transform is invalid. So definitely you have to mention what is the sigma c, and the sigma c varies from function to function. Okay. So we assume that the real part of s is greater than sigma c. Fortunately, we don't have to keep track of abscissa of the convergence in the work related with the Laplace transformations, because we always assume that this s value that we are using has a real part which exceeds the abscissa of convergence for a particular function. When we do some problem no, that time you will understand much better about this. Okay. So when you want to substitute a particular numerical values of s in certain cases, then you have to pay regard the abscissa of convergence and make sure that the numerical value of s that you want to put in the expression satisfies that minimum part is greater than sigma c. Normally we don't have to bother about the abscissa of convergence in our routine work. So right now don't think too much about this abscissa. When we do some problem, then you will understand much better. Now this is your complex plane, the x-axis representing sigma and the y-axis representing omega. Okay. So then there is certain abscissa of convergence sigma c. Let us say this point is sigma c. Let us say sigma c equal to 2. So this sigma c depends upon the particular function that we are dealing with, as I mentioned. And in the inverse Laplace transform integration, you recall that when we derived x of t is equal to 1 by 2 pi j integral of x of s times e to the st and ds. What is the limit? Limit is sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity. Okay. So the limits are from sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity. So how do you find this line sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity? Let us say this is sigma. sigma c equal to sigma something else. Okay, so it is a vertical line like this. So it starts from sigma minus j infinity and all the way you go to sigma plus j infinity. It's called a complex integration. So it is a vertical line. So you are integrating through along the vertical line, and this is called this vertical line in the complex frequency plane along the thing is called a Bromwich contour. Bromwich contour. It is a very big contour. It starts from sigma minus infinity and goes all the way to sigma plus infinity. Now what we say is this one is instead of that, what I do is, let me replace the sigma by some value c, and this sigma also replaced by some value c plus sigma, right. So therefore in order to achieve the convergence, abscissa convergence, then this c should be greater than sigma c. That means what? The real part of s must be greater than sigma c, right. Now this s I can write c plus generally sigma plus j omega, but here we replaced sigma by c. Therefore c plus j omega must be greater than sigma c. That means what? C must be greater than sigma c. So this is the vertical line. So this is your c, and this should be like this. Okay, so what we have therefore is this sigma c. This line is sigma c, and this point is c, and you are integrating c minus j infinity to plus c plus j infinity. So this is not sigma c, and this also c. So what we have therefore is this sigma c, this point sigma c defines the region of convergence. That means in this region my function is converging, where your c is greater than sigma c. So that is called a region of convergence. In short form, this point is sigma c, and this one is c minus j infinity to c plus j infinity, and for convergence real of s must be greater than sigma c. Then this is my s, c minus j omega is equal to s. Therefore your c must be greater than sigma c. Therefore this area is called convergence. In this region, the Fourier the inverse Fourier transform or inverse Laplace transform converges. Okay. Therefore this is called a region of convergence, ROC, region of convergence. It is an abbreviation. So the Laplace transformation exists provided the value of s is in the region of convergence. Okay, so the s should occur here somewhere else. If s happens to be here, then it does not converge. It does not converge. So therefore the s happens to be always lie in the region of convergence. That means real part of s must be larger than sigma c, which is the abscissa of the convergence. Okay, the x-axis abscissa. So the real part of s, which is given by sigma, sigma plus j omega. If you take a real part of that, then you will get sigma. The sigma should be greater than sigma c. As far as the integration in the inverse Laplace transformation is concerned, we take a vertical line in the region of convergence, vertical line like this. That means real part of s should be any general value of c, but that c should be larger than the abscissa sigma c. Okay, therefore we have two formulas now. One is Laplace transform x of s, integral of x of t e to the minus st dt, the limit is 0 to infinity. Small x of t is 1 over 2 pi j, integral of c minus j infinity to c plus j infinity. You are integrating through the line, vertical line, along with the abscissa sigma c, x of s e to the est then ds. Okay, so these two are the fundamental relations relating to Laplace transformation. We can also abbreviate this as follows, like Laplace transform of x of t is x of s, and L inverse of x of s is x of t. You can write like this. Okay, this is an alternate way of writing the forward transformation and the transformation in the reverse direction. Okay, so this is a general relationship that we need to keep in mind, these two formulas. Now, before we proceed further, let me make a few comments. Okay, the first comment is what we said, the real part of s must be greater than the region of convergence abscissa value. Okay, so we will first say that the real part of s must be greater than the abscissa of convergence. What is this? Abscissa of convergence. Okay, abscissa. And this must be kept note of, okay, whenever you want to substitute numerical values of s. Okay, so this will be very clear when we take up some example problems. Okay, don't worry for the time being now, just note down this point, and when we work out some problems, this will be very easy and very easy to understand also. So as I mentioned earlier, normally we don't want to keep track of what is sigma c. Okay, we don't want to keep track of sigma c in our usual routine work. And the second comment is Laplace transformation integral is taken to start from 0 minus, okay, to take care of impulses at the origin at t equals 0, if any, in f of t. See, generally what is for x of s? X of s is equal to 0 to infinity x of t e to the minus st times dt. Now that means your x of t is right sided signal like this. What if the x of t contains an impulse? That means what? This impulse starts at this point. What is this point? 0 minus. Therefore, if you start your integration from 0, then you will miss this impulse. Okay, you will miss this impulse. Maybe I'll draw this impulse in a different color. Oh my god. Okay, like this. Let me draw the impulse like this. That means the impulse is locating like this. So this point is 0 minus, and this point is 0 plus, and exactly this point is 0. Okay, so when you do the integration from 0 to infinity, then there is a chance of missing this impulse which is sitting at the origin. Okay, so if f of t has impulses at the origin, then it should integrate not from 0, it should integrate from 0 minus to infinity. If you do like this, there is a chance of missing the impulse which is located at the origin. But in this, no problem. So that's what I want to say here. Second point. Okay, so if x of t has an impulse at the origin, then you integrate from 0 minus to infinity. Okay, the impulse sitting right at the origin. So to take care of the impulses which are present in the origin, we need to integrate through the impulse. So it should start from the 0 minus. Therefore, we must start the integration from 0 minus. If x of t does not have any impulses at the origin, it does not matter whether you take it from 0 or 0 plus or 0 minus. Okay, no impulse at origin, then either you start from 0 to infinity x of t e to the st dt, or you start from 0 minus to infinity x of t minus, by the way, dt, or you take 0 plus to infinity x of t e to the minus st dt, does not matter. Okay, but if x of t has impulses at the origin, and if you want to include those impulses in your transformation, Laplace transformation, you must perforce, okay, you must perforce your integration from 0 minus. You must start the integration from 0 minus. So normally when we define the Laplace transformation integration, we take it starting from, for example, always 0 minus to infinity, like this. Okay, you take into account these impulses also. And a third comment I would like to mention is, in the complex frequency plane, this is sigma and this is omega. This is the Brown-Witch contour. Okay, and we are taking the integration along this Brown-Witch contour. You take a small interval. Okay, let me say this is delta omega, and the center point is denoted by omega I. Okay, as you move along this line, you start from sigma minus j infinity and move to sigma plus j infinity. Okay, so you are incrementing omega. So when you start to move from this guy to this guy, you are incrementing omega, slowly you are moving. So you can say, you can divide this entire contour into small intervals like this, and each one with delta omega. So this is omega I plus 1, and so on and so forth. So you can say, you can divide this entire contour into small intervals of with the delta omega. Suppose you have a center point. Let me draw again. This is my contour, and I divide this in this interval. This is my delta omega. The center point is omega I. Then we can think of x of t as composed of elementary exponential signals of the form. See, let me write down first. What is x of t? X of t is equal to 2 pi j integral of c minus j infinity to c plus j infinity. What is this? X of s e to the plus st and ds. Now, what is the exponential term? E to the st and ds. This you take, e to the s is sigma plus j omega t, j omega multiplied by t. Now we are replacing this omega by small interval, e to the sigma plus j delta omega times t, because I am considering a small portion along the Brown-Witch contour. Okay, so e to the st is a exponential signal, is an exponential signal. But with the coefficient density, what is the coefficient density? X of s. Therefore, from this you can write 1 by 2 pi j x of s multiplied by the coefficient density del of omega by 2 pi, and instead of integration you can substitute summation, right? Then e to the st becomes sigma plus j delta omega, because you are not moving continuously, you are moving discretely now. Okay, you are considering small intervals like this. J times delta omega t. Now replace this delta omega by its center point omega I. Okay, so this is 1 by 2 pi j summation x of s delta omega over 2 pi e to the sigma plus j times omega I and t, where I is equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. And you take limit delta omega goes to 0. Okay, what is this? This is my x of t. So therefore x of t can be thought of as a summation delta omega goes to 0 of a number of elementary exponential signals. Say this is my elementary exponential signals. How many number of exponential signals? Infinite number of elementary exponential signals with the coefficient density of this guy. Okay, so this one is called exponential signal sitting at this point omega I. So that's why you put omega I here. You see here there is omega I, this is a center point, and this omega I is here. You can have a look. Okay, so the exponential signal is sitting at this point, okay, in the complex frequency plane, and its coefficient is x of s multiplied by delta omega by 2 pi, and this is there delta x of s times this one delta omega by 2 pi. Therefore, we can treat this x of s times del omega by 2 pi as the coefficient density. Delta omega 2 pi as coefficient density. So the complex exponential signal has this coefficient density x of s times del omega by 2 pi. Okay, so as we treated in the case of Fourier transform. Now in the case of Laplace transform, the coefficient is x of s, because the complex frequency signal is e to the st rather than e to the j omega it, and the density is defined as so much coefficient per cycle per second. That is why we put del omega by 2 pi. Therefore, this del omega by 2 pi is multiplied by x of s. Okay, now you have taken the limit delta omega to go to 0, and you sum over here put the summation over I equals minus infinity to plus infinity. So finally this summation becomes 1 over 2 pi 1 over let me write down properly, 2 pi j summation of x of s, then delta omega becomes delta s divided by 2 pi j. This 2 pi becomes 2 pi j, then e to the c plus j omega times t, and this you can write as 1 by 2 pi j integral of this is nothing but x of s, and this whole thing is ds, then e to the st. Therefore 1 over 2 pi j integral of sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity x of s e to the st and ds. Very rarely we will use this formula to find the inverse Laplace transform. Okay, so don't worry much about this inverse Laplace transform. In fact, we may not use it, okay. In fact, it is not needed to find the inverse Laplace transform. Finding an inverse Laplace transform is much easier by using an alternate method than using this inverse Laplace transform formula, okay. Very rare occasion we will use this inverse Laplace transform, okay. So ds by j becomes d omega. If you compare your Laplace transform and Fourier transform, then sigma plus j omega becomes s, okay, and the running variable is s now, not omega. And take the limit from c minus sigma minus j infinity to sigma plus j infinity. In case you can put fix some number c minus j infinity, and here also sigma you fix some number, therefore c plus j infinity. So therefore this defines the inverse Fourier inverse Laplace transform relation, or else let me write down 1 over 2 pi j integral of c minus j infinity c plus j infinity x of s e to the st and ds. So even here, just as in the case of Fourier transform, we can think of x of t as composed of a number of exponential signals of this value x of s, okay, where x is nothing but sigma minus j omega, and omega runs from minus infinity to plus infinity, and at each particular spot frequency there is a certain coefficient density, and that coefficient density is x of s times, this is the coefficient density, okay, and this delta omega by 2 pi is the width along the contour, okay, delta omega by 2 pi. So the coefficient density is multiplied by the width, so x of s times delta omega by 2 pi, and the exponential is e to the st. So that's how one can interpret the inverse Laplace transform, and take the summation from, okay, take the summation of all such elemental signals along this line, okay, c minus j infinity to c plus j infinity. You take infinite number of elemental elements. See, this is one elements, another element. There are infinite number of elemental intervals, okay. So just as a Fourier integral which splits up an x of t as an infinite summation of exponential signals like e to the j omega t, the Laplace transform can also be thought of as splitting up an x of t as a number of elementary exponential signals of the type e to the st, where s is the variable, this s is the variable, along with the Bromwich contour. This is called a Bromwich contour, and having a coefficient density equal to x of s, and therefore the particular coefficient of e to the st would be x of s times this delta omega is replaced by ds by j, and already have 2 pi. So this becomes x of s times ds divided by 2 pi j, and multiply e to the st, and then integrate. From the limit is c minus j infinity to c plus j infinity. Okay, so this is an interpretation which will be useful, okay, later on when we talk about system function h of s. Okay, just as we talked about the system function h of j omega in the case of Fourier transform, and this one is in the case of Laplace transform. Okay, so this is generally what we need to know about the introduction to the concept of Laplace transform. Okay, so in the next lecture we will take up questions of Laplace transforms of various important time signals x of t, okay, and find out the abscissa of convergence for each of these in a routine fashion. Okay, we will do that okay, in the next lecture. Okay, like if x of t is equal to del of t, then u of t, and so on and so forth. That we will consider in the next lecture. So let me stop at this point. Thank you very much.